Shalom Aleichem, and welcome back everyone as we're preparing for Shabbat, Parshat Shelach. Before we start, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone. Last week I was in Queens for Shabbat, Baruch Hashem in Regal Park, and I was approached by many people who told me that Baruch Hashem, they listened to the shir, they learned from the shir, they shared the shir, they shared the stories, the lessons on the Shabbat table. This is exactly why we have this shiur, so people would have what to say over on the Shabbat table. And hearing it from person after person after person who told me this, it brought me a lot of chizuk. A big appreciation to Ornatan as well for having me speak there by Sudash Lishid. It was an honor to see so many young people learning and coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and coming closer to the Torah and the mitzvot. And a special shout out to Yosef Aharon Fatachov for his chizuk as well, encouraging me to continue to give this shiurim as well. Shalom Aleichem, Reb Gabriel. Okay, starting off this week's parasha, we know Moshe Rabbeinu gets permission to sort of send spies to go spy the land of Israel, or at that time known as the land of Canaan. In his instructions, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Uritem et haaretz mahi, hayesh ba etz im ayin." He says, go check what type of land it is. See if it has a tree. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, as he continues, "Ulkachtem et peri haaretz," and take fruit from there. So obviously there's trees. Now he doesn't say, see if there's trees, hayesh ba etzim. He says, hayesh ba etz. See if there is an eitz, if there is a tree there. So right away Rashi explains, what was Moshe really saying? Rashi says, yesh ba'etz, im yesh bahem. Look, he's telling the Meraglim, the spies, take a look, im yesh bahem, adam kosher. If there's a good person that lives there, an adam kosher, she'igen aleihem b'zchuto. Because if there's a righteous person living in Canaan with all the evil people, the righteous person will protect everyone. Moshe Rabbeinu is traveling, him, Aharon, all the Jewish people, so all the miracles at the Yam Suf were freed from Mitzrayim, and Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them, check if someone is kosher there, because if he's there, he's going to protect the Canaanim. We're not going to be able to go inside. That's a huge statement. How are we to understand this? When Avraham Avinu was praying for Sodom, Hashem wanted to destroy Sodom, Avraham is davening. If there's 10 tzadikim in every city, if there's 9 tzadikim in every city, if there's 10 in total and there wasn't even 9, right? And Hashem says, if there are those tzadikim, v'nasati l'chol hamakom b'avuram, I will leave them all alone. If there were tzadikim there, tzadikim will protect, and I wouldn't destroy Sodom. Now remember, Canaanim and the Sodomite, right? They already did so many sins that they were deserving destructions. But yet, if one Adam Kosher was there by the Canaanim, which the Gemara says, the Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to see if Eov was still alive in Eretz Canaan, he was the Adam Kosher that he was worried about. In Sodom, we needed 10 tzaddikim, but the Orach Chaim said that if Avraham Avinu lived in Sodom, him as one tzaddik, he would have saved everybody if he would have lived there. Rav Simcha HaKohen Shep Zecher Tzadik Lebracha explains Rashi a little bit to understand one way of understanding it. He says, why does the Torah, when Moshe Rabbeinu wants to say, look if there's an Adam Kosher, he doesn't say, look if there's a righteous man there. He says, look if there's a tree there. So why are we comparing an Adam Kosher, a kosher person, a good person, to a tree? So listen to what he says here. He says, in addition to the shade which a tree provides and the fruit which it produces, a tree has a cleansing effect on the ecology, right? A tree purifies the air by its very existence. CO2 goes into it, oxygen comes out of it. This is what a tree does. It balances the oxygen level in the air. Likewise, a tzaddik, living in that community, he affects his surroundings. Like someone would come and it goes through and he comes out kosher. Like He's able to like somehow put a shade over everyone, at the same time cleanse everybody up. This is what the special shefa, the special blessing, spiritual abundance that a tzaddik has on his surroundings.
What happened to Lot?
Lot wasn't up to par. He was one.
Why he was saved?
He was saved because of Avraham Avinu would feel bad if he was killed. And that wasn't saved as a tzaddik, he was saved because Avraham Avinu would feel bad. And I see again, a tzaddik saved him. He was saved because of Avraham, not because of himself or anyone else. The Gemara tells us a very interesting story. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was standing, and 3 parsot away from Yeshua ben Levi was standing, a lion attacked a person. For the next 3 days, Eliyahu Navi refused to talk to Rabbi Yeshua. What did Rabbi Yeshua do? It's not his fault. The lion killed someone. How is it his fault? The answer is, Rabbi Yeshua, if he was tzaddik enough, he would have had positive influence on the people around him, daven for them, and this way they wouldn't have been attacked either. He says, Rav Galinsky, the says, we find the same thing with the Kohen Gadol. How do we see with the Kohen Gadol? If someone killed someone by accident, they have to run to an Ori Miklat. Right? They go to the city of refuge. The people in there want to go free. But they only go free if the Kohen Gadol dies. So, in order for them not to daven that the Kohen Gadol should die, the Kohen Gadol's mother comes and gives them food and clothing and tells them, oh, it's all good, don't worry, you'll be fine here. You don't need to daven for my son to die. Now, Lamaisa, what does the Kohen Gadol have to do with anything? How is it his fault? Someone, what's it called? Killed someone by accident. What does it do with the Kohen Gadol? So the Mefarshim explain, but that's exactly it. If the Kohen Gadol was Gadol enough, he would have davened for everybody, and his influence would have made that no sin would have happened. No one would have got hurt. The fact that it happened, it's his fault that he didn't daven enough for it, that he wasn't enough of a tzaddik, enough of a gadol to influence that around him. It's a huge, huge understanding here. Chizkiyahu HaMelech, as a war was about to happen, Chizkiyahu HaMelech walks into the Beit Midrash, puts a sword in the Beit Midrash at the entrance, and he said, Kol mi she'eno osek b'Torah yidakeh b'cherev zo. Anyone who's not learning in this Beit Midrash, he's going to be killed with this sword. So everyone asks, hold on, Sancherim, you're worried about the war. You want people to learn more Torah, right? Why are you walking in with the sword to the Beit Midrash? They're already learning Torah. Go to the marketplace, go to the bazaar, go to the places where people are not learning, and tell them either learn or we'll kill you. Why are you going to the Beit Midrash and telling them? These people are learning already. So they explain again based on this concept, that if they would be learning to the level that they should be, then that influence will make everybody else tzadikim as well. So we're not going to run after the guy in the marketplace. We're going to go to the Beit Midrash guy, because the guy in the Beit Midrash, the tzaddik, he has that power to cleanse and influence those around him. This is a very big concept, because we always say that you should live near tzaddikim, they're religious people, they're a religious community. Why? Because of exactly this. One of the reasons is exactly this. Because when you live around them, they provide for you a shelter, and they influence you as well. If you don't have them around you, our Gedolim, think for 1 minute. After the Petira of Rav Chaim Kanievsky, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, right? The terrorist attacks in Bnei Brak happened within a week. What was it? Almost immediately. I'm not a Navi. I don't know why things happen and how it happens, what's related. But if you think about it for a second, you see this. You see, he was a protector. He was there. He was a magen. He was protecting us. He was an Adam. Who else could be an Adam Kosher if not Rav Chaim Kanievsky, right? And it says, if the Adam Kosher is there, sheyigen aleim b'zchuto. He protects them in his merit. They Rav Pesach Kron Shlita, he brings an interesting story with Rishol Salanter Zechat Tzadik Lebracha. When Rishol Salanter passed away, he was almost penniless. He had almost nothing with him. One of the few possessions he had was a hat. And this hat was already worn out. And one of his Talmidim got the hat. And he started wearing it every Shabbat. The first people didn't say anything. And after a few weeks, people started telling him, "Oh, that hat is dirty, it's old, it's disgusting. You're embarrassing yourself, you're embarrassing Shabbat. How could you wear such a hat?" At first he didn't answer anything. But after a few weeks it's happening, he said, "Let me tell you something. Let me ask you." He tells the people who kept bothering him. He says, "If I can spend my Shabbat without Lashon Hara, would you say that's an amazing Shabbat?" They said, "If you could spend Shabbat without speaking one word Lashon Hara, that's more than amazing. That's beautiful." He says, "Well, let me tell you something. Every time I put that hat on, I cannot speak Lashon Hara. The influence, the spiritual influence that Rav Shaul Salanter put into that hat by just wearing that hat, when I wear it, I cannot get myself to even speak a word of Lashon Hara." If that's what a tzaddik can do with his inanimate objects, then living near a tzaddik and being next to them, how much more so will that have an effect on us? So lesson number 1, live near tzaddikim, because they will influence and protect us on the right derech. Let's move on to lesson number 2. In this week's Parshat, the Meraglim come back, the spies come back. And they say a report, and they say that it's not going to happen. We're not going up there to Eretz Canaan. It's dangerous. It's very bad. People start crying. I mean, all know Hashem says you're crying for no reason. I'll give you a reason for crying. And what happens is that was Tisha B'Av, and many, many tragedies of the Jewish world happened on Tisha B'Av because of the no reason crying. They were supposed to go into Eretz Yisrael, conquer it right away, but they didn't have that emunah, they didn't have that bitachon, and because of that, so much tragic events happened on Tisha B'Av. But why? What made them cry? What made them? People who just destroyed Egypt. They saw Hashem miraculously destroy Mitzrayim. They crossed through the river. Miracles, man, every day, water, clouds. You have Moshe near you, Aaron, you have the Mishkan, you have the Aaron, you have everything there. What happened that they felt that they couldn't make it? Now, there are many reasons. Different opinions why they decided they didn't want to go in. But the last thing the Meraglim say to the Jewish people, the spies said to the Jewish people before the Jewish people start to cry, was these words. We were like grasshoppers in their eyes, and so were we in their eyes. And then they started to cry. What's this mean? They said there were giants in Eretz Yisrael. And when the giants saw us, we were like nothing but like little grasshoppers in their eyes. When they saw that the giants thought that they were grasshoppers, they started to feel like grasshoppers, like no shoots, like nobody. And then they lost hope that they can go in to Eretz Yisrael. This is the way the Kotzker Rebbe and many explain what was happening in this scenario. Is that they had a low self-image of themselves.
Former slaves,
That's true. That's true. You had former slavery in them, so it's very easy to head back. That is true. But we see that when a person has a low self-esteem, it can cause a lot of problems. Now, negative self-esteem, just thinking poorly about yourself, is not necessarily an averah, but it leads to a lot of averot, right? If a person thinks, I can't learn Torah, I can't do mitzvot, I'm a nobody, I already did so many averot, right? That's one of the things that Chafetz Chaim says you have to learn from this story as well. Is the Yetzer Hara comes 2 ways. One of the ways it comes, it tells you you're a nobody. You're going to go to Shacharit today, you're going to pray Aravit. Who are you? Yesterday you missed it. The day before you missed it. You never have kavanah anyway. And he makes a person feel bad. And then he says, you know what? I give up already. And he says that's a very big problem. Because the Yetzer Hara makes you feel like a nobody. And then when he makes you feel like a nobody, he makes you do nothing. Makes you not do this stuff. He makes you do other things. Enjoy this world at least, he says.
What's being humble then?
So humble, very good question. There's a very big difference between humbleness and low self-esteem. Humble doesn't mean that I'm a nobody. Humble means I'm a somebody, I know my worth, but am I doing enough of what Hashem wants me to do? Meaning, I have kohot to speak, right, and teach Torah. Am I teaching enough Torah? I have to be humble because maybe I'm not doing what I'm not living to my potential. That's what humbleness means. Humbleness doesn't mean I'm walking around like I'm a nobody. No. Humbleness means I know who I am, but I have to know that I can actually do more. So I have to be humble. Like the Hafetz Chaim, he would say, he would talk to himself and he would say, people overheard him. He said, Hashem, you let me write the Mishnah Berurah. You let me write the Ahavat Chesed. You let me write this. You let me write that. You let me open a yeshiva. You gave me all this to do. But what did I do for you, Hashem? See, he said, like, Hashem, you gave me this, but what did I do for you? That's called humbleness. Like, understanding that whatever I did might not be enough of what am I supposed to do. That's humbleness. Low self-esteem is when a person thinks he's a nobody. That's a different category. That's a different category. Humbleness, I'll give you another mashal. For example, if I think I'm a nobody, right, then whatever, people do whatever they want with me. A humble person says, I do have worth, but maybe that guy's worth more. It's different. I have worth, but maybe that guy's worth more. That's why he's sitting up there. That's why he's the speaker. That's why he's doing this. That's like, because he's more. But not saying that I'm a nothing. I'm somebody. I have what's worth to me. I know my worth. But perhaps that guy is higher. It's different, because maybe he's living to his more potential. That's the difference between humbleness and low self-esteem. And the tragedy of self-esteem is that of low self-esteem is that a person gives up. The Baal Shem Tov once told a student of his, you don't have emunah. And the student said, Rebbe, what are you talking about? Every day I spend hours thinking about Hashem and how Hashem does everything and how Hashem is great to me and everything. How can you say you don't have emunah? And he said to him, yes, you believe in Hashem. You have emunah in Hashem. But you don't have emunah in yourself. This is a problem. Like the Tzidkas Tzaddik says, he talked to us on Shabbat, was that the same way you believe in Hashem, you have to believe in yourself also. Because Hashem created everyone with the ability to do every mitzvah that he's supposed to do. Anything that you're supposed to do, you have the ability to do it. You have to believe that you can do it. This was here. They should have believed if Hashem said to go up to Eretz Yisrael, that's it. They can do it. No, they started feeling, who am I? I'm a grasshopper compared to the giants. All of it was lost. The important part is to remember that you have to have not bini bolo and walk around, who am I? No one else is compared to me. But knowing that Hashem created me and Hashem gave me the ability to do what I needed to do. When Amalek came to try to fight with the Jews, he fought with the Jews who were outside the cloud. Who was outside the cloud? They say it was Shevet Dan. It was Shevet Dan. Some of them were worshipping Avodah Zarah, so they were kicked out of the clouds, and Amalek came and fought with them. The Ger Rebbe explains why Shevet Dan. From all the other Shvatim, why Shevet Dan? So Shevet Dan, they're by their name. What's Dan? Din means judgment. They were self-critical all the time. They felt that they weren't worthy enough. They felt that they weren't tzadikim. And so because they felt they weren't tzadikim, they started acting like a shayim, and they started serving with Zarah. And that's why they were outside the camp, and that's when Amalek got to them. Because they were too self-critical on themselves. You have to have a certain image. You have to have a certain feeling of who I am. I am somebody, but maybe I'm not as great as that person. Maybe not as great as that person, but it doesn't mean you're a nobody. It's a difference. That's a big difference. A person has to believe that anytime he's in any sort of situation, it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem put him to it. Hashem will pull him through it. That's a very important yesod. Here he brings down in the Paninim a story about Yosef and David. They met in Auschwitz during the Holocaust, and they worked together on the same work detail. They both suffered traumatically. They lost their entire family. And then they spent the years after the war in Bergen-Belsen. And then they emigrated to Eretz Yisrael. And there also it was hard to live. So they decided, both of them, to go to America. They came to America, they got married, they had children. They both wanted to remain religious. But it was very hard to get a job that were Shomer Shabbat. And so, week after week, they try to get a new job. And it was 1 week that they were both fired from their job on a Friday. Yosef and David, both of them had no money. They didn't have anything for Shabbat. What happened? On that Friday, that Shabbat, right? Yosef went home and he told his wife and children that this Shabbat's going to be a very hard Shabbat. He lost his job. They have no money, no food. It's going to be like Tisha B'Av. They came home and all Shabbat they were crying in hunger, how they had no food and they had nothing. That was Yosef's approach. David also came home and he also told his family, we're having a hard time. We don't have food this week really to eat. But he said, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have Shabbat. We're going to put the Shabbat challah cover on the table. We'll put the kos on the table. We'll sit around the table with our Zmirot books. And we'll do everything we do on Shabbat aside from the food. And so the family celebrated Shabbat that Shabbat with everything they had except for the food. Yosef's children never forgot the pain and trouble they were in that Shabbat. And when they got older, they said, why do I need to be in a religion that I would spend the happy day so sad? And many of his children left the derech of Torah. But the David's children, they always would remember that Shabbat they didn't have food and how their father sang with them the whole night. And the whole day on Shabbat they were singing and sharing stories and the Torah. And they're doing everything else on Shabbat except for the food. And that even though they didn't have food, it was hard, but yet that feeling of happiness that their father put into the house kept them to stay in the derech HaTorah, and all their children remain religious. It's really the approach. How do you approach it? Well, how do you view it? Half cup full? Is a cup half full? Is it half empty? This is a very important way that a person has to look at himself. What the way he looks at himself, but more so we're going to add is how he looks at others, especially when it comes to our children, right? Children, our grandchildren. I heard once there was a speaker. I forgot if it was a psychiatrist or therapist, but one of these people was speaking, and he was saying that when kids, how do you build strong, good kids? So the way to give them is you have to give them a good self-image. You have to make them feel good, look good. Always make them feel good about themselves. He says, why? Because they go out into the world, someone in their class might bully them. The teacher might say something wrong to them. This might do something wrong, and it's going to destroy them, right? Slowly, each piece is going to hit them. But if at home you keep building them, fixing them, creating them again, then when they go back outside, they can deal with all that nonsense. Because they know when they get back home, their father's going to say, wow! Right? Or Pesach Krom would say when once his child was running around the house and like he was about to knock something over, like he did knock something over, and Pesach Krom wanted to scream at him and say something to him like, oh, you, and instead he mid-sentence he changed himself to say, oh, you such a tzaddik. And his son always would remember his father saying such a tzaddik, and that changed him to keep thinking positive about himself. Here Rabbi Abraham Tversky, who's also a doctor, tells us that the way to deal with alcoholics and drug addicts, how do you get them to go away from alcohol and drugs? It's not easy. I'll tell you, I worked in the hospital for many years, and I've seen what we call frequent flyer patients. Patients who keep coming to the hospital over and over again for the same thing. And a lot of them are for alcohol and drugs. Keep coming. We had this one guy that I personally took care of him like my first year working at the hospital. And every year since then he came back. Polish guy, came back. 5-6 years later, he died by us. Same patient, same issue. So he says, how do you change them? How do you make them feel different about themselves? He says as follows: you have to really give them a self-image about themselves. He says a story about Avi. Avi was an ex-convict. He would always be on drugs, and he also he was a thief. He steal in order to get his drugs. He was in jail and he was getting out. This was in Israel, and he was going to a rehabilitation program. And Rabbi Twersky was speaking about how you have to look at yourselves as being good people. You can't look at yourselves as alcoholics. And this guy, Avi, says to him, how can you talk like this? I've been a thief almost all my life. I've been taking drugs almost all my life. My family wants nothing to do with me. If I get out of here, I have nowhere to go. How can I have a good self-image? So Twersky told him, have you ever walked by a jewelry shop and you notice the beautiful diamonds in the window? You know those diamonds were not always so beautiful, right? They came from the mines. They were ugly lumps of dirty stone. It took a professional to polish it and shape it and everything. And that's how you have it. He says, you're the same thing. You're a brilliant stone. You're a beautiful diamond. We just need to polish you. That's it. Everybody's a beautiful diamond. We need to polish you. Avi got through the program, and for 2 years, he wasn't stealing. He wasn't on drugs. And he was living in a halfway house where convicts live and ex-convicts live. And one day, the person in charge of the halfway house said, listen, you're working in construction, you probably have a truck. There's a person who passed away. They have some furniture they want to donate to us. Can you go pick it up? So he goes to the house and he sees the furniture is not so good. He doesn't want to make them feel bad. He starts taking it out to his truck. As he took it to his truck, as he's taking it out to the halfway house, he's picking up the sofa, and all of a sudden, an envelope falls out of the sofa. He opens inside, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars inside. So now he doesn't know what to do. That's a lot of money. Nobody knows about it. But he came to the owner of the halfway house, the person in charge, said, we found the money. Together they called the person who they took the furniture from. The family is so appreciative of his integrity that they said, we're going to donate all that money to the halfway house. They were able to fix it up, able to get another room, they were able to get more stuff. And from that day, Avi no longer perceived himself to be a thief. He wrote this letter to Rabbi Twersky. He said, listen, when I used drugs, I would get high, but it was temporary. Afterwards, I felt miserable and depressed, worse than before. It was a never-ending cycle. Now it has been 3 months since I found the money. And every time I think of what I did, I feel great all over again. What I did that day makes me feel great every single time I think about it. This is not just a temporary fix. It was like a permanent fix. When Rabbi Twersky returned to that halfway house, he saw that they put a new sign over the entrance. The sign read, diamonds polished here. The diamond in the rough has finally emerged. Yes, sometimes we have children, sometimes we have people that are very hard, the diamonds in the rough. But it's our job to polish them as well by making them feel good, giving them a good self-image. So, lesson number 2, self-image is a good self-image, a healthy self-image. It's very important to be a Jew and follow the Torah and the mitzvot. Part 2 of this lesson is that it's very important to give a good self-image to our children, our friends, and neighbors, and everyone else in order to give them the chizuk and help polish them as well. Let's move now to our 3rd lesson from this week's Parshat. It's actually going to be from the Haftarah. So, we know in our Parshat, we have the 12 spies that go to Eretz Yisrael. The Haftarah discusses another time in Jewish history that spies were sent to the land of Canaan. Obviously, this was before Yehoshua comes with Klal Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael. He sends 2 spies, right? He sends Kalev and Pinchas. Pinchas is Eliyahu. Pinchas and Kalev and Pinchas. So Kalev went twice as a spy, once with the Meraglim and once with Pinchas. And they go to Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Canaan, and they go to the home of a harlot. Her name is Rachav. She protects them and hides them from the soldiers who had discovered that Kalev and Pinchas were there, right? The Canaanim found out that these Jews were there, so they went to get them. Rachav sends the soldiers a word claiming that the 2 spies already ran away and they ran outside. But in fact, she had hidden them on the roof. And after the soldiers departed, she went up to Kalev and Pinchas and revealed how her people were really scared and that the Jews were in a strong hand to come and destroy. she appealed to the spies, to Kalev and Pinchas, that they were to swear to her to guarantee her safety and her family's safety. And they agreed to this. She lowered them, the pasuk says, with a rope through the window, for her house was in the wall of the fortification, and she lived in the fortification. So in the wall of the city, that's where she lived. She took a rope and she lowered them out, and they were able to run back to the Jewish people. Rashi says, based on a Gemara in Zvachim, that rope and window was used by her customers. They wanted to get in secretly. She was now doing tshuva with that rope and window by using it for the appropriate place. The Gemara tells us that Achav later was Megayer. She became Jewish. She converted to Judaism and she married who? Yehoshua. She then became the ancestress of 8 Nevi'im, including Yirmiyahu HaNavi. Now listen to this part. The Untitled Chapter says a fascinating postscript of this whole story of the rope. Yirmiyahu, who was her great descendant, was thrown into a deep mud-filled pit for his unpopular prophecies about the destruction of Yerushalayim. So during Yirmiyahu's time, Jerusalem is supposed to be destroyed. He tells the people say you're lying because they have false prophets who are saying everything is fine. You have a temple, nothing's happening. So they take him and they throw him into a pit. And Eben HaMelech, who was Baruch ben Neriah, another descendant, who's also a Navi, right? Another descendant of Rachav, goes to King Tzidkiyahu and asks permission to release Yirmiyahu. Tzidkiyahu was a tzaddik, and he allows to release Yirmiyahu from the pit. The pasuk says they then pulled Yirmiyahu with ropes and raised him out of the pit. Yirmiyahu placed old, worn-out rags under his armpit to reduce the pain that the ropes were biting into his flesh. He's holding on to a rope. The Yalkut Shimoni says, the Midrash says, that Yirmiyahu was crying out at this time. And he said, Hashem, wouldn't it be possible for you to send me a ladder? They're taking me out of the pit. Why are they taking me out on a rope? Give me a ladder. It's not so hard for Hashem to do anything, right? It's not hard at all. Why have they given me this rough rope? So Hashem responded, didn't your grandmother Rachav also send away the spies with a coarse rope, with a very thick, hard rope? She could have given them a ladder. If it was good enough for her, it's good enough for you. Midah keneged midah. Rachav saved the lives of the spies. She could have used a ladder, make it more easier for them. She didn't. Yirmiyahu, her great descendant, had to use a rope. Couldn't get a ladder. Rav Pam, Zecha Tzadik Libracha, Rosh Yeshiva Torah Vedat. He says, you learned a huge lesson from her. When you do a chesed for another person, we spoke about this many, many times, when you do a chesed for someone else, you're really doing a chesed for yourself. Because whatever you do comes back to you. He says, when you do a chesed, do it completely. Because when it's going to come back to you, how do you want it? You want it with a hard rope that's going to hurt you? Or you want it with a ladder? You want it in a nice way. A person is supposed to go and do chesed in the best optimal manner as possible. Rav Pam would share that his grandfather, the Shedlitzer Rav Shimon Dov Anilik, Friday night in the shuls in Europe, they had all the poor people and all the tourists and visitors would come. And Friday night they would say, who goes to which house for Shabbat? That's where you would find your Shabbat meal. And there was a big guy there and there was a skinny guy there. One of them had a sefer, one of them didn't. The big guy didn't, the skinny guy did. So the rabbi said to the rabbi, you take the guy with the sefer, the skinny guy, you take him to your home. The rabbi was upset. He told to the rabbi, I don't need someone to speak and learning. I want to do chesed. I want to give food. I want to feed him. I want to give him a place to sleep. I want to give someone who's going to eat a lot. Give me the big guy. This way I can do chesed the complete way. Her Reisman Shlita, or Shiva whatever that student of Rav Pam, Meir Shiva, he says that when people come to his door for tzedakah or stuff like that, everyone according to his ability and according to the situation, he would say, "Can I also give you a cup of water, a bottle of water, a glass of water? Maybe you need to use the bathroom, or you like maybe a cookie or something like that." The person's coming to collect money, but he's walking around all day. He's coming from Eretz Yisrael. He's a shliach. He doesn't have access to all these things all the time. So maybe when you do the chesed, do it completely. Just to end off with the another story. I don't remember all the details of the story, but I saw it in the Ami magazine a couple of weeks ago. This has to do with Rabbi Newman from Beis Akiva Teres Miriam. His not his father, but his grandfather. His grandfather, during World War I, they lived. I believe the story goes they lived somewhere in Poland. And they lived in Poland. And in World War I, the Jews were forced into the army. And his grandfather was forced into a prisoner of war camp. He was going to be watching the prisoners of the war. And a lot of the prisoners of war were the Germans. In World War I, a lot of the war prisoners were German soldiers. And he had one of these places that he was watching them. And one of these German soldiers, I don't know what happened, but long story short, the general of the Polish army told this Rabbi Newman's grandfather that he has to, was it great-grandfather, great-grandfather? Anyway, he told him he has to kill this German soldier. Take him outside to the back of the camp and shoot him dead. Now, he didn't know what to do. He was trying to say, why? They said, you have to. He starts walking out with this German, and this German speaking to him and says, listen, you're Jewish. You can't kill me. You can't kill. You have to let me live. He says, but I can't. They're going to kill me if I don't. So he says, listen, just shoot. Here's my shirt. Show them this, and just let me run. And he says he didn't know what to do. He looked around. No one was watching. So he took the shirt. He shot the shirt, and he let him run away. He goes back in, and miraculously, no one asked where the body was. He just showed them the shirt. They were happy, and story ends over there. But many years later, not so long after World War I, was World War II. The Jews were being rounded up. And this Newman, Mr. Newman, he took his family from Poland. He went to another city somewhere in Eastern Europe. I don't have the story. I tried finding it at home, and I couldn't find it. So I'm telling you from what I remember. And he goes there, and I was on Shabbat that they were taking all the Jews and putting them on the trains to send them to Auschwitz or one of the concentration camps. And he says as his family was about to enter the train, one of the SS soldiers came running up and said, Newman! And he calls all of the, he says, come with me. Takes them off the train, he brings them to the police station. He says to him in the private room, he says, you don't remember me? He says, no, I don't remember you. He says, I'm that soldier that you saved. I'm going to save you now, because everyone there is going to their deaths. He says, here's your papers. Go to the border, take a boat, and travel to America. You're out. Get out of here. So he says that his grandpa at that point said that it's Shabbat. I cannot sign. Even though Pekuach Nefesh, he's totally allowed to sign. For whatever reason, whatever his reason was, he didn't sign. He said, and then another police officer came and said, what are they doing here? He says, oh, they have to leave to America. They have paperwork. He says, okay, so sign it. But they're not signing it. And the other police officer said, okay, then get back to the train. And the guy he saved said, no, they're crazy. Just let me sign it for them. He signed the paper for them, gave them an escort to the boat, and told them to get on and get out. He saved somebody with the family. He saved somebody, and he got saved himself. Do complete chesed. You see someone, you do something for them, do it, because when you really do it, who are you doing it for? You're really doing it for yourself. Not only is it really for yourself, but kol yisrael rebim zeh lezeh. Everyone's responsible for each other. You're my brother, he's my brother. Everyone is together in this. Maybe be zocheh to be able to help one another fully, completely, with a good heart all the time. So let's review the three lessons, and then we'll close it. The first lesson was, let's go back to the first lesson, the influence and power of living there at Tzaddik, and how that is a chut for us. Second lesson was self-esteem for us is important, and giving good self-esteem to others is important. And the third lesson was to do a chesed completely, because you're going to need it back as well. And may HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us take these lessons to heart, apply them to our lives. Shabbat Yimekor Baracha. May we continue to have a lot of berachot. And Rabotai, anyone would like to email me, you can send an email to the address that's on the channel. And share this Torah with others. Again, it was very good to hear from everybody last week in Queens about listening to the shir and sharing it. B'ezrat Hashem, we continue it. And may Hashem give us the ability to spread Torah more and more every single day. Shabbat Shalom Lekulam.